Well, a mother and a daughter taking shelter inside a church in northern Gaza have been killed by Israeli snipers. In a statement, the Latin Patriarchate of Jerusalem says that the women were shot in cold blood at the Holy Family Catholic Church. One was killed while carrying her elderly mother to safety. Pope Francis condemned the incident during his weekly address at Vatican City on Sunday.
Unarmed
civilians are being bombed and shot at, and this has even happened inside the Holy Family Parish compound, where there are no terrorists but families, children and sick people with disabilities. A mother and her daughter, Mrs. Nahida Khalil Anton, and her daughter, Samara Kamal Anton, were killed and others were wounded by snipers as they went to the bathroom. The house of Mother Teresa's nuns was damaged. Their generator was hit. Some say it's terrorism, it's war. Yes, it's war, it's terrorism.
Well, let's bring in Mohammed El-Masri. He's a professor of media studies at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies, and he joins us again from Minneapolis in Minnesota. Mohammed, it feels like we're hearing increasing condemnation from various quarters. We just heard there from the Vatican. We've also heard today from France. They want this immediate and durable truce. The UK and Germany have been talking about it, and I'm putting it a sustainable ceasefire. Are we now seeing a shift within Israel's staunchest supporters?
Honestly, I think it's probably too early to say. Certainly, I think it's too early to say how significant this is. If we go back to 2014, if we go back to 2008, 2009, Operation Cast Lead, we did hear these periodic condemnations, even from Western governments. But Israel has continued on. And I don't, I always say I don't want to be reductionist about it. But really, the United States holds all the cards. They hold leverage over Israel. But clearly, they view Israel as a strategic ally, and they're willing to give Israel an awful lot of leeway. They're supporting Israel, obviously arming Israel, and then providing it with diplomatic cover. So I think more important, quite honestly, than what European countries are saying, and I'm not saying it's unimportant, but more important than that is the United States position.
Well, we've also heard a shift in that. Let me ask you about Israeli public opinion. We were talking about that in our last news hour. You were saying that Israelis broadly don't fully understand the way that their government is actually prosecuting this war in Gaza. Are they hearing about the growing international criticism? Does that change anything?
Well, they hear about it in the context of Israeli media, but usually the narrative suggests, it's the same old sort of David versus Goliath story, us against the world. Everybody's picking on Israel. They're all anti-Semitic. But again, they're not getting that firsthand. The people that I do follow in Israel are saying, and these are prominent media figures and also academics, they're saying that Israeli media is a singular narrative, supportive of the government, and Israelis are very, very insulated. So they're not only very exposed to what others are saying, they're not even exposed to what's happening, 30 or 40 miles away in Gaza.
Well, within the context of that narrative, Mohammed, what changes minds now in Israel? We're hearing, I believe, about another potential captive release in the works. Does that change the narrative?
Well, Israelis are very angry at the government for the way, I shouldn't say all Israelis, but many Israelis are angry at their government for the way they've waged the war, not because of the toll that it's taken on Palestinians, obviously, or not because of the war crimes and so on and so forth, but because the government has not been able to defeat Hamas in 2.5 months. Reporting suggests that Hamas remains largely intact. I do think Israelis are aware of that. Their government has admitted as much. They're also angry because the government has not been able to get back those captives. They promised they'd be able to get back the captives. They said they'd be able to get them back militarily without resorting to any sort of diplomatic means. And in fact, they haven't been able to carry out any of those promised rescue operations. And as you've been reporting, they shot 3 of those Israeli hostages themselves just the other day.
Obviously, we've been reporting on the growing anger around that. Does that change anything? This understanding of how the IDF has been behaving on the ground. Obviously, these were three men who we've been hearing from the IDF were actually waving white flags.
Yeah, as I noted earlier, the thing that's fascinating to me is that there's all this outrage, right, in Israel and also in the United States from the administration, but nobody's really asking about the Palestinian victims who have regularly have been victims in exactly this way, waving flags, completely unarmed, coming out with their hands up, women, children. You've been reporting on the two Palestinian Christians that were killed, both women, a woman and her daughter. Yeah. So this is commonplace. It's the shoot anything that moves policy. So it's been interesting to watch that. What I do think could change is, look, the reality is that the longer this goes, and the longer the government, I guess, is failing at getting those hostages back, the more anger is going to reign in Israel among the general public. They want their hostages back, and they've blamed Netanyahu for not being able to get them back.